a brief introduction on April. She's born and raised in North Carolina. She is a soccer superstar and very passionate about the water, paddling, as well as teaching. She's graciously, offered today to spend some time with us and to share some wisdom about paddling and mindsets. And for a list of April's many accomplishments, feel free to check out her website, aprilzilk.com, or you can also find her on Instagram at aprilzilk. So our group are a group of paddlers from True North Paddling Club, and we are one of the largest dragon boat paddling clubs based out of Toronto, Canada. We're under the direction of our coach, Chris Edwards. I'm not sure if Chris is here today, but a brief intro on Chris. Paddling background comes from competing in multiple national and international championships in sprint canoe before he entered the dragon boat scene as a coach. So on top of coaching for our club, Chris also actively is involved with Dragon Boat Canada as a Canadian Senior A national team coach and program director. So a little bit more about the actual teams here today. So our club is comprised of many divisions, including our competitive development team, True North Leviathan. We also have our Senior A women's team, True North Senior Women here. University team, which is Iron Dragons, based out of the University of Toronto. And then we have our Premier programs, which includes the SLP men's team, True North Premier women's team, and Hammerhead's mixed gendered team. In our audience today, we also have a special group, which is a Girl Scout paddling club, which April volunteers with in North Carolina. So I will leave it up to April to introduce them and share some things about the work she does with these girls. And April, if I've missed anything again in your introduction, please feel free to share. And I'm going to leave you to start off our session.
Thank you so much, Annette. Thank you guys for having me. I actually don't volunteer with the Girl Scout Club yet. It's in its early development phase, but I definitely just wanted to invite them to this talk today. No real further introduction about, the Girl Scouts. Further introduction for them, I believe they are the Blazing or Flying Blue Herons, and they are out of Virginia. Mostly middle school and high school girls from what I understand, and they're getting ready for a big race called the General Clinton in New York. So I thought today's talk on training sustainability, mental wellness, and mindset would be excellent for them to start their season. So just to get started, I've been paddling for about a decade now, and before I started down this life path, I was a bit of a couch potato and I led a very unhealthy lifestyle. It's just recently that I feel like I've really found my groove with life and paddling, and I've been practicing healthy discipline and life balance for a few years now, but it's not overnight, right? Anything worth doing takes some time. So I was super excited when I saw the topics that you sent over: training sustainability, mental wellness, and how that relates to training, as well as mindset or your mental game. So to me, I honestly don't see much of a difference between these, but I understand how these three concepts can be separate for a lot of people, but I like to go about things from a very holistic viewpoint. So after we're done here today, I hope you're going to see how these are all intertwined and how improving just one of them is going to improve all of them. So for us to get started on working towards training sustainably and enhancing mental wellness or developing our mental game, we need one very, very important thing, and that is motivation. Sometimes motivation goes up and it causes us to gravitate towards these things a little more and they improve. Other times motivation drops, and this could be either due to a lack of energy or a motivation just for other things, right? There's a lot of aspects to life that might draw our attention away from training, even mental wellness, like shiny things that are fun. So anything we want to improve upon, though, requires our motivation to be focused on it. So a lot of us start out training for something with motivation from something external. We see something or someone inspirational or new to us, and we want to try it. And maybe we want to train to win because we want some recognition, or we want to get fit because we want to look good with abs. But, you know, again, the motivations are widespread. So before I continue, I would actually love for everyone to write down in the comments some of the initial motivators that like get you wanting to train, you know, like the sparkly things. Like, what makes you want to get on the water? Hanging out with friends, that's excellent. That's a good one. What's something? Making friends, avoiding sedentary lifestyle, that's a good one. Yeah, like, what are some things that like every Headspace, every year, maybe around New Year's or your birthday, you say, I'm gonna do this. Like, what is your motivation around that time of year? So I'm sure everybody has heard, these are things that, yeah, motivation goes up, right? I'm sure everybody's heard a little bit about internal versus external motivation. A lot of you guys' motivations, it seems like you guys have a good balance of internal and external motivations. But turns out that internal motivations, sadly, maybe things like getting outdoors or clearing your head, that's more of an internal motivation. But social aspects, summer bod, things like that, and even our friends, those are external motivators. There it is, beating Chris and Derek at a race. I was waiting for somebody to say it, but that's very much an external motivator. So for those of you that did list something external, or could be kind of on the fence, it's a little external, but it's somewhat internal, let's get internal. What are some internal motivators that really matter to you, that make you want to paddle, that make you want to train? This could be something like sending a positive role model for your kids, or, you know, some children in general. Maybe you want to read more books so you can become, like, you are more intelligent and you can make better decisions. Maybe the fitness isn't for the body, but it's for genuine health, like long-term health, and reducing healthcare costs in today's world, and living a longer, fuller life. So if you guys can think of any internal motivators that are deep internal to you that you would like to share in the comments, please do so. I want us to start thinking internal motivation now. No beating somebody in a race. And so as I just, there we go. Improving, feeling stronger, work-life balance. Excellent. So internally motivated versus externally motivated is huge for training sustainability and mental wellness. Long-term training sustainability is more likely with internal motivators like self-improvement, like feeling stronger, like work-life balance, like a lot of these examples that you guys are giving here now. Mental wellness is difficult to achieve if you only use external motivators. External motivators often lead to comparisons. In either scenario, you can see how being imbalanced can lead to burnout. You're never going to be in the right headspace long enough to develop a solid mental game if you're always relying on those external motivators. All right. So how do we get closer to achieving life balance, where we train without burning out, where we feel mentally healthy most of the time, and we have this mental attitude of bring it on, world, no matter what's going on around us? Goals, big shiny goals. So before we go any further, you can either write in the comments or write this on a piece of paper. I want you to write down one goal that you have related to paddling. This is a paddle talk, of course. So if you would like to, please share it in the comments. I think a lot of your internal motivators, those look like the beginning workings of some good goals, especially paddle when I'm 80. Mine is paddle when I'm 120. Like, seriously, I'll be #1 in the world one day. when all my competition is dead. No, I'm kidding. That's a horrible joke. But yeah, so if you want to share with me some of your goals, like it can be something like, I want to hit or maintain a certain stroke rate. I mean, it could be winning a race. It could be attending a race. There could be a bucket list race. Anything you've got. Oh, there's a good one right there. Surf seamlessly through the waters. I like that. Best time, better at surfing the outrigger canoe. I love seeing people's goals. These are so fantastic. Now, while you're thinking about that goal, I want us to take it one step further. So on your piece of paper, I want you to give it 3 levels. So there's a gold goal. So within the same goal, you got gold. This is the best possible outcome. It's kind of a stretch, but you know, if you did absolutely everything right, perfect world scenario, and you were at your best, it's totally doable. Then give yourself a silver. So you make some blunders. Maybe you didn't hit all your training sessions at 100%. You know, you let the weather get the best of you, or maybe there was something outside of your control even. Maybe you had to attend to a family member or help a friend in their time of need, and that became more important to you than paddling for a little while. But, you know, for whatever reason, you missed some things, but you know, silver goal, you're still really proud of what you've done. And then bronze. You got to have a bronze goal within the same goal. This one, no matter how bad you screw up, you're pretty sure you got this one. And what this does is you're able to still celebrate achieving a goal at the end. And I mean, it can sound like you're kind of like short selling yourself, but you're not. In the long run, this helps you develop a champion mindset. So even by celebrating the bronze goal, you're developing mental wellness, and you are developing a strong mental game. The process of working towards these goals is where training sustainably kicks in. So throughout the rest of this talk, I want you to reflect on that goal and its 3 levels. So how do we get to these goals? Step 1, training sustainably. So you guys want to know all about training sustainability? Look at that goal and then look at your motivators. See if they fit well together. We lose steam on goals that are vague. We lose steam on goals that do not internally motivate us. Your goal can't be a moving target like I want to beat Chris and Derek in a race or some other team. It can't be summer bod looking good in a bikini or your board shorts for other people to ogle at. Your goals need to be SMART. I'm sure you guys have heard SMART goals. It's kind of one of those buzzwords recently, but paddling is no different. We need to set SMART goals. Get specific about your goal. You need to get very, very detailed about speed. Write down a number, stroke rate, skill, some quantitative factor that you can measure. How will you measure your progress? If I hear anybody say weight or something on the scale, I'm going to come through this screen. That's not nonviolent. Sorry. Body fat percentage is an acceptable measurement. Weight is not, just as an aside, but I digress. GPS time. If you want to be an author of a book, word count. If you want to be smarter, how many books did you read? If you can't measure it, you're going to lose steam. Is it in your realm of achievement? If it is too challenging, you're going to need to get creative, or you're going to need to pivot like on that goal and modify it some. If it's not hard enough, you're going to get bored. If it's not achievable for you, you risk overtraining. So if you're looking at somebody else's time, somebody else's stroke rate, somebody else's volume on the water, and you say, oh, well, I want to beat that person and this is their volume, then you're very, very likely to burn out. Likewise, you don't know that you have the same muscle fiber type or physiological makeup as your competition or your external motivator. You need to keep that internal motivation to improve yourself. Believe it or not, there's body types that do better off a lower volume, higher intensity. There's body types that do better off of high volume, low intensity work. The type of work that makes you the best athlete and person possible isn't the same as what makes your teammate a good paddler. There's only a few ways to figure out what kind of person you are, and I'll tell you the secret to that at the end. Why is it? It's very important to understand why, because that's gonna make you know if it's a realistic goal or not. So is your goal realistic? If you have to work like 80-hour weeks or something for your job, but you also want to be the best paddler in the world, it's not very realistic. But that comes back to why. I think that if you want to be better at paddling, then you will prioritize it. If you want to be better at reading, like books, if writing, something, whatever skill it is, it's only realistic if it means a lot to you and it goes with your why. And then finally, when is it? It's all great to say, hey, I want to paddle 6 miles an hour. Maybe I'll get to it in 5 years. Like, let's set a time, not necessarily a deadline, but some sort of end date. And then that gives you something to work backwards off of. So if 2 years from now, I want to hit a 6 mile an hour, like for 1 mile, then 1 year from now, maybe I need to be able to hold a 5.7, or you just start working back between where you are now and where you want to be, and you fill in that space in between. If there's no deadlines, I promise you're going to get apathetic. Training sustainably will not be on your list. Step 2 in goal conquering: mental wellness. Once you've mapped out some of your training, filling in all those spaces in between, kind of making a little plan with your SMART goals, you can start to cultivate mental wellness about it. And when you're faced with challenges like the one we are currently facing, you'll be a little bit more resilient. A great way to cultivate mental wellness in life and training is to start focusing on what you can do, not what you can't. Find opportunities in everyday tasks that help you achieve your big goal. Who here has a to-do list? I have a long one. That's what, yes. Raise hands. Few projects that we would love to get around to at some point. Something I've found to be really, really important when it's not a planned break. So we have an off season, right? That's normal. But what if you get injured, or you're sick and you can't train for a while, or you can't get to the water because of shutdowns, or you can't train? What helps me personally, and I found a lot of the people I coach, it helps them as well, is keeping to a schedule. So what this means is, for that hour block that you would normally have your training, take that time and do something constructive with it. Maybe check off something from your to-do list. If it's your gym block and you can't go to a gym, maybe you start a home workout routine. If you're injured, maybe you clean your home gym or start collecting some home gym equipment. There's no shame in that game. But if you have a garden to weed, then go outside and weed your garden. If you have a room to paint, some things to fix, some things to clean, take that hour and just use it for constructive action. Mood follows action. On top of that, whatever it is you're doing can still be training. Like Karate Kid waxing the car, as long as whatever you do mindfully, it is part of your training. I want you to write down now, maybe next to your goal, what are some mental skills that can enhance your training goals, that you can work on even though you're doing an activity that isn't necessarily fitness. It's not paddling, it's not in the gym. So something bad happens, you can't get to your workout. What's something that is required of you when you're in a race, when you need to be at your best, that you can train even weeding your garden or painting a room or cleaning your toilet? I know that's glamorous. And I'm going to have you guys share a couple in the comments. So I'll give an example. Learning how to focus in our very distracted society is training. Learning how to not be distracted from the task at hand. You need that in a race. Focus was, yeah. Follow through. Sticking to your schedule is just following through with something you said you were going to do. Discipline. Setting intentions. Maybe breath control or visualization work. If I'm going to paint a wall, I could use my lats. I don't know, if I'm weeding the garden, I could do really deep breathing. I could do some breath holds for Red Bull Heavy Water. Who knows? Meditate to clear my mind. Yes, focus on the moment. That is huge. When in paddling, every stroke has to be as good as the last. When you lose focus in a paddle race and your competition is good at what they do, they're gonna kick your butt. So cultivating focus is huge. So maintain good posture. Oh, that's excellent. I did that one. I was grating cheese in my kitchen the other day and I realized I was super tense. And I was like, why am I so tense grating cheese? So I relaxed and I grated the cheese with like more zen. It's very, very important. So all these skills are trainable, even in the most mundane of tasks. So something as simple as good posture, making dinner with your feet firmly planted on the floor. This is a balanced way to do things. It's healthy and it's a good way to achieve your training goals. And it fuels a healthy mind. Learning to relax into your efforts, release tension, and the muscles that you aren't using, in my cheese grating example, turns out, as an aside, studies show that one of the major reasons that seasoned athletes perform better at their events is because they're using less energy on extraneous movement. They're more fluid. So when you're new, you're actually more tense at whatever it is you're doing, and you're burning extra calories on, say, like if it's stand-up paddling, a beginner's doing more balance tension. A runner might have more extra unneeded motion in his arm or his torso. And in the end, you don't last as long or go as fast when you're new. So the more time you can spend learning to relax into your efforts, the better off you'll be in the long run. So when you have this balance in life where you start seeing everything as a training opportunity, you're on your way to developing, we did those, your mental game. Ta-da! All right, mind right, game tight. There's this cool app on my phone. It's called like Lucid. I think it used to be free, but he's this basketball coach guy and he does meditations. They were fun. I have since maybe it wasn't free. I got rid of it, but it's cute. Whenever you start to feel stress, anxiety, or some uncertainty, I want you to shift your focus back to your big goal and what you can control. What are you even stressing about? If you're stressing over something that puts your bigger goal at risk and the current issue doesn't usurp your big goal, scrap it. When you have the choice to, I really, I don't know, like I got to make dinner. I can't go paddle. I don't know. Could you call your significant other or order takeout and go paddle? Start just thinking outside of the box. Because at the end of the day, something that never, ever improved anyone's mental game ever is stress. So just whatever it is, choose one or the other, but don't stress over your decision. And when you have your big goal in mind, it makes it easier to not flip-flop. Oh, I'm going to get on the water. Oh, no, I'm not. I'm going to do just do it. Like, stop stressing. It's going to be better. The more you stress about it, the worse your performance is going to be. Relax, visualize, always trust in your training. Next, I would like us to do a mental game exercise. This is fun. I want you all to think of some sticking points, some obstacles that may threaten your big goal. As I mentioned, gee, I'm running late today and I could either get on the water or make a fabulous dinner. Like what am I gonna do? I gotta eat, right? So I want you guys to write some of those in the comments. What are some obstacles that stop you from training when you know you should, if that was a goal of yours? I always feel like mine is it's cold outside. I don't like the cold. So if anybody has any sticking points or some obstacles that they constantly run up against, share them, write it down. If not, we'll just go with work. Aha, there they go. I want to take a nap. Laundry. Yes. Commute. Feeling lazy. Cold and wet. I hear you. I'm cold and wet. So now with those, let's brainstorm some ways that we can overcome them with a growth mindset. Oh, sorry. Growth mindset. That's where we are. Gotta put boat on car. Yes. All of that is true. So let's shift our thinking. Let's have a growth mindset. Work. I totally hear you. I get so focused on what I'm doing. Like I look up and the day is gone and all of a sudden my 1 hour paddle, there's no way I can be out on the water for an hour. Or if I am, I better get my headlamp and my like ultra warm jacket. So it's not always about perfection, right? If I can't get on the water for an hour and I can't load my boat, like I'm running super late, maybe when I get home, I just jog for 15 minutes instead, like a 15 to 30 minute jog. Maybe if it's cold and wet for an entire week and I don't get on the water, maybe I should look into some foul weather paddling gear. If I'm feeling unmotivated, like I need to nap or I'm feeling kind of lazy, what I'm actually going to do there is check my calorie intake from the last few days and how much sleep I've been getting. Because I tell you, my motivation tanks if I'm in a calorie deficit, like really bad. And women worse than men a lot of times. It's just, we don't eat enough. It's a long story, but you eat more and then call me back and tell me if your motivation, if your laziness didn't go away and napping desire. Something else you can do, you couldn't get to the water, you couldn't do what you wanted to do. Maybe you just take that hour and your commute for self-reflection. You visualize paddling. You guys have heard of the little finger study and the piano study and the free throw study. These studies showed that visualization led to the same strength gains. Granted that it was in a little finger in this study. The same strength gains as someone who actually exercised the little finger, and the person who visualized the free throws was just as good at making the free throws as the person who physically did the free throws. So if you got a cool commute, man, listen to some audiobooks or start like seeing the lanes as bumps and like paddle away. Just think of it as from a growth mindset. Avoid perfection and the thinking that if you can't do it exactly how you wanted to do it, then you can't do it at all. You got to pivot and you got to get creative. You can have gold, silver, and bronze goals for each individual workout if you absolutely have to, but just keep going. At the end of the day, your strongest part of your mental game is peace of mind, knowing that you've done your best, that you did everything you could, that you can trust in your training and all your preparations. The mind is quiet when you're on the race course. Does anybody know what emotion that describes? If you want to put it in the comments, you can, because I'm going to hit the button. It's confidence. So up top there. So fun. So back to our goal. We've covered all the topics you guys wanted to cover today. So what are some achievable, measurable steps towards your big goal that would make you feel more confident. Things like, I'm going to start measuring my stroke rate. I'm going to find a way to know if I've improved my catch. I'm going to test my aerobic fitness once a month with a maximum aerobic function test. I'm going to test my top end speed, like little things, little milestones along the path. Take those and plan them into your training schedule. Which is measured is improved. Then next to those measurables, those milestones, make sure you write in your backup activities. They're not the most ideal scenario, but they're more helpful than doing absolutely nothing, right? And feeling hopeless and not contributing to your confidence when the race time does come. So I'm going to wrap this up with 6 rules for training success. We got SMART goals. You guys have your SMART goals now. You're going to make them. You're going to set 3 levels. Everything is training, even cheese grating or weeding the garden or painting the room. Wax on, wax off. Keep a training journal. I cannot stress this one enough. Go to the store, buy a little binder. You don't have to. I started an online training platform, so I'm shooting myself in the foot here. You don't need, the best, the latest and greatest super training plan. You just need a notebook. I promise you. Write in it your goal in the front, and at all times map out those small steps and all of your goals along the way so that you can measure the progress. This is going to let you know if each session that you go out for is successful or not, no matter what it is you did. When you have to pivot and do thing B instead of thing A, write that down. Say, today I meditated instead of paddling because I was running late from work. Write what you did, write how it's going to improve your long-term strategy, your long-term performance, and write what went well about it. Maybe write what you didn't like about it. No matter the thing, just write it. I promise it's going to help. Set intentions for every training session. You need to know exactly what it is you are trying to accomplish when you go out. You can't just go for an errant jog. Aerobic fitness, anaerobic sprint ability, mind clearing, whatever it is, take a minute before you get started, get in that right mindset, and make sure you use the session to focus on what it is you're trying to achieve. Write those intentions in that training journal. Reflect on them afterwards. And if you had to do your backup routine, were you able to at least stick to your original intention? Never, ever, number 5, treat training as work. Or at least try to stop having a negative connotation of the word work. Nothing is all rainbows and butterflies. Sometimes there's tasks that make your end goal, make those goals a reality that they're not your favorite. I don't know. There's a lot of examples for that, but by carrying on and kind of completing the tasks that aren't your favorite, you're developing mental fortitude. And part of mine, for example, I like to remind myself why I'm doing what I'm doing sometimes. For maybe if the Yukon 1000 and I'm getting out there and training in the frigid cold or the dark, you just remind yourself while you're doing what you're doing, it's not work, it's for the big goal, and it's going to be good. And last but not least, have an exit strategy. Life changes, goals change. Just set a few ground rules for yourself that what conditions make it okay to let your goal go. That being said, enjoy the process every single day, but don't get too attached to the result. That is the ultimate form of sustainable training, mental wellness, and a solid mental game. On that note, thank you for having me today. I'm going to open it up to questions. Does not necessarily have to be about these 3 topics or the talk. If you want to ask anything about your paddling, your fitness, any weird races I've done that you want to know more about because you're thinking about doing them, anything at all. Annette's going to take everybody off of mute and let her fly.
Oh, I have a question.
Yay!
Annette, can I ask a question?
Yes, I had a couple from Andy, but so since Andy is still here, he can ask his own questions. But Anne, go ahead, and then Andy can go after you.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. Anyway, thank you for that, April. That was a very inspiring chat. So I was just following some of your blogging, and I just was wondering is or was more difficult to train for, the Red Bull Heavy Water or the Yukon 1000?
Oh, wow. So they postponed the Yukon. And so they just keep postponing it and postponing it. So at this point, that's the race that's harder to train for because is it ever going to happen? For me, that's a hard call because I haven't done the Yukon yet. There is an opportunity to maybe go up this summer and do the course, even if they not having the race. So I'll let you know after I do that. But Red Bull, because it's shorter, but the hold downs and the breath holds they're both cold, but I think the breath work for Red Bull probably gives the nod to the Red Bull event.
Quite different events. Thank you for that.
Yeah, they're very different. Like one's like one's endurance and then anaerobic, like sprint your buns off, and the other is just forever for days. So
thanks, Anne, for that question. I'm gonna get to Andy next because he had made some requests and he has to go paddle actually soon. So Andy, would you like to ask maybe your top two, three questions?
I don't actually remember which questions I sent you, but I think primarily after visiting your site, I was really interested in hearing about your experiences paddling in some of those exotic locations, like in the Himalayas and things like that.
Dude,
how did high altitude affect you? How did it affect your paddling? Did you feel like you're more energetic when you came back to sea level? Things like that.
That expedition was nuts. I actually wasn't very impacted. I got a little lightheaded once on the travel up, but I think because we took our time, we drove up versus a lot of people fly into that area. We drove, and so I had a couple of days to kind of acclimate as we rose in elevation. When we got to the highest, I think it was Tanglang La, the highest motorable pass in the world, I leapt out of the car and I started doing jumping jacks. And the driver came rushing out and he was like, "No, madam, no." And he had like a can of oxygen and he was trying to shove it onto my face. And I was like, no, I'm fine. Like, this is fun. And he's like, "No fitness." And it was a blast. The waters were colder than any water. It was a lot of snow melt, a lot of rapids in the Indus and the Zanskar rivers, I believe. And then a lot of the places where we set like the record for the highest altitude paddled, and a lot of those lakes, they're protected. So we almost kind of like snuck onto them and shouldn't have. It was kind of hey, foreigner, ask forgiveness, not permission, because I don't think they were gonna authorize us to paddle in certain spots. Looking back, I probably would have definitely found the permits or found permission. I was young, and that was a bad choice. But no, the altitude didn't affect me at all, and I traveled back slowly as well, so I didn't feel super energized like I had a gazillion red blood cells or anything afterwards.
Thanks, Andy. And I think one of the questions Andy had as well was about hydration for the longer races, what your usual game plan is for that.
So I always keep 3 separate, like for the really long events, I have to have plain water, because every once in a while you just get sick of whatever mixes or, is in there. So I have plain water. I have another one that's electrolytes. And then the third is calories. So like almost like a Tailwind or a Vitargo, something that is liquid calories, because you're going to get sick of that flavor, and you don't always need calories. And sometimes you do just need water, and sometimes you do just need electrolytes without calories, and not to drink more water because you could risk hyponatremia. So I've kind of got it dialed in where in those longer races where I'm pushing hard for, multiple hours, if I start feeling you'll feel that first twinge of your hand, like it gets that T-Rex curl and it doesn't want to let go. You're like, electrolyte imbalance. So you sip your electrolytes. Energy starting to get a little low, like not, maybe my pace is dropping, or I'm just not feeling the same power as I was before. Sip some calories. If neither of those, if I don't have any feeling at all, just drink water. So that's kind of, and the more you go out and train for things like that, I think the better you can dial it in. Because if you're keeping your training journal, you'll write that down when you get back. You're like, hey, felt a mild cramp, tried Noon tablets or sport salts. Write down what you tried and if it worked or not. But yeah, for long distances, 3 bladders, 3 different solutions for what my body, my biofeedback is telling me.
And one more question on behalf of Andy, because he's the main person that's been submitting questions. Do you train, before we get into the other questions is what I mean, we're not just ending it here. Do you train solo, or do you have a group that you consistently train with?
So I had a group before leaving California. I'm back in North Carolina now. My husband's job took him to Durham, North Carolina. It's central, and it was far north Durham. So we ended up moving almost on like the North Carolina, Virginia border. And there's nobody out here that paddles. Like I'm literally completely by myself. The next lake over has got some paddlers, but mainly rec boards. And then if I wanted to drive like a half hour south towards Raleigh, there's a Dragon Boat Club, an OC6 club, and a bunch of stand-up paddlers that I know that I'm friends with. So if I need social interaction, I have it, but I pretty much train solo. And before I left for California, I also trained solo most of the time, just because it's so hard to sync schedules with other people sometimes. And I was starting to take my paddling very seriously. I wanted to get to the point where I could be on the world tour and be competitive on the Sup World Tour. And, like people canceling last minute or saying they're not going, it was just better for me to paddle by myself all the time. And which actually feeds into this other question in the comments. Says, what kind of things are you thinking about or not thinking about during long paddles? I have an Audible subscription and I listen to audiobooks. So I'm up to like training for Yukon. I think this last year I hit like 40 books and I feel so smart. No, I'm kidding. But some days my brain is going to explode. Some days I can't listen to the audiobooks, right? So if it's a hard day at work, and I've been doing a lot on my computer, then I can't listen to an audiobook. I've got some music. I've got a playlist for like intervals, especially intervals. I can't listen to an audiobook. So I have my interval playlist, but for the most part, if it's not an audiobook, then it might be a podcast or something that I've downloaded. So if I can't pay attention, I like, is it Lewis Howes, his School of Greatness? He's good. And Magnus and Marcus. If you guys all want some serious, like physiological, what kind of intervals to do, what kind of training to do to get really good at training, their podcast is called On Coaching. And it's Steve Magnus and John Marcus. Best podcast ever. I listen to that every day I'm in the gym. And if you want to know everything I know about training, they've got like over half of it, I'm sure. So, and they're awesome. Oh, and then Sherry was in the Yukon River Quest. I have heard some stories, guys, about that race. And then what do we got? Tiffany wants to know, what are some sports or activities you do for cross training that you found helpful to your paddling? It's almost like a hard question, because that, for me, I was not fit at all when I started down this path to paddling. So I wasn't good at anything. So everything was good for me. Like everything cross training was excellent. Going for a walk with my dog was good. So jogging was good. It increased my aerobic capacity and like my breathing. Mountain biking was good because you work hard up the hills and then get to cruise down. Swimming is good because it uses the arms, but really opens the shoulders, as well as prone paddling. Outrigger canoe is excellent for stand up. Like those are cross, because the outrigger canoe, you get more glide and you kind of get used to a certain speed. So when you get back on the stand up, you kind of want to keep going that speed that you're used to going to, even though it doesn't go as fast. So I do believe cross training. Oh, and then, I did CrossFit for quite a few years until I realized I was overtraining myself into oblivion. And then I dialed back on that and had some major paddle breakthroughs. But it's very unique to each person what cross training activities you should select. You want to pick something. You can do anything in your anatomical adaptation phase. So after your off season, when you're just kind of getting back into training, you don't want to jump straight into a training plan. I know a lot of us do. We get motivated, we jump straight into a plan. But you want to take like 3 to 6 weeks, and they call it anatomical adaptation, to just ease gently back into training. Try to hit most of your workouts during the week that, you're just getting back to it. Maybe you don't, maybe you miss a few. But that time you should use for something you kind of stink at. Like maybe if you're not flexible, do some yoga. If you find that cardiovascularly, that's what's like limiting you in your paddling, maybe take up jogging. Or, if you're into stand-up paddling, but you don't have good leg drive, or your legs are weak, maybe take up cycling or mountain biking. But it's going to be really person specific. Take your weakness or something you're not good at and work on that early season. And no matter what it is, I promise it's going to help your paddling. As you get closer, so you start you leave anatomical adaptation. After that, you go into strength training. The best cross training for paddling at that time, you're going to do like a lot of slow, low intensity on the water. You pair that with heavy for you weights. So those two things go really well together. So strength training is excellent cross training for paddling. It's not even cross training. It's just training for paddling. And then as you get closer to your goal races and you're on season, you just want to make sure that whatever cross training activities you're doing, they're not taking away from your recovery and not slowing you down on the water. So that comes back to having your training journal and writing your intentions. So whatever cross training you're doing, make sure that you know why you're doing it. I'm strengthening my legs, I'm improving my cardiovascular system, I'm improving my breathing. Whatever it is, it has to have a goal in itself. It has to have an intention, or you shouldn't be doing it just for I like to do this. No, don't do that if you've got a very clearly defined goal. All right, I'm looking at the questions. My internal motivations for paddling. That's a good one. This is a bit of an existential thing. It's really weird. When I was overweight and unhappy with my job and just like kind of, yeah, I found paddling. I went paddling and I said, oh my God, I love this. And within the first year, in the first 2 weeks, I entered a race. I didn't finish. I was DFL. If you don't know, that stands for dead freaking last, in case there's any kids on here. I was DFL, and I said, you know what? I like this. I want to do this right. And I'm going to come back 1 year from now and see if I can be not dead last. And I did. I got the right board. I found the local shop. I took some lessons. I got a training plan, and I stuck with it like I meant it. And at that point, my internal motivation was just, you know, can I get fit? And it was partly related to being ill before that. I was like, I just want to get healthy, and this is going to do it. Look at all those healthy people. Those people who are fast, they look so good. They look so healthy. And I got second place the second year that I entered that race. And I was like, what can you do if you really try? And so it became this existential thing where I thought to myself, if I can go from being an overweight, like very unmotivated, unhealthy couch potato, I want to make it to like the top in the world on paddling. And if I can do that, then this life that we're living, it really is all up here. Like, I do believe that maybe we are in control of our own destinies and realities, maybe. But I didn't win. I'm not the best. I'm number 2. So there it goes. That's so internal motivations, just existential crisis, and setting a positive role model for the next generation. So, you know, when I was overweight and unmotivated, like I didn't see positive role models or anyone I cared to look up to. So I would like to show that you can follow your dream or follow your passion. You can be a professional female athlete in your chosen sport. And you don't have to sell out and show like Instagram butt photos or, you know, whatever it is for sponsorship dollars. Like, I'm trying to prove that you can do it on your own. You can do it with your brain, and you don't need to pay anybody to get there. You can do it by yourself. So that is my main motivation, because I didn't have the money to hire coaches or anything along this route. I've just read all the books on training and fitness and nutrition known to man. I was like, books, I can do that. Most enjoyable and least favorite moments of the Great Alabama 650. My least favorite, cleaning Jen's underpants. No, I'm a good friend. No, most enjoyable, the end, when it was over. She and I were just notified, if the APP tour does not run for stand-up this year, she and I have a team slot available for the Alabama 650 this year. So we'll see what happens. Andy had to go, but he wanted to know the width of my sup board. Mine's 23, but I'm getting a new 22. It'll be here next month. Last question. Yes, because we're out of time.
Sorry. Marianne has one last.
Yeah, I have a question to ask you. Sorry. I feel like, your paddling journey is almost somewhat similar in a sense that I've been also doing it for the past almost more than a decade. How have you dealt with a growing older body? I think for me, it's been every year I have had to change something. And it's a learning experience. And I wanted to know from your perspective, what have you noticed, what has helped you, and what have you focused on more as you're aging, and what I should be, looking out for as well for myself.
Absolutely. For me, you have to take my answer with a grain of salt, because I was so unhealthy when I started that, like, as I was aging, I was improving my fitness at such a level that everything I did felt better than I used to. I literally survived off of, like, college was, you know, the typical ramen noodles and beer. And before that, like, my parents, bless their hearts, they didn't know any better. But I drank like tons of soda. Like I would drink 12 sodas a day. I was overweight. I had a headache every day. I was dehydrated every day. I ate like store brand mac and cheese and hot dogs every day for dinner, and Pop-Tarts in the morning, more Red Dye 40. So for me to say I feel the healthiest that I've ever felt, like over the course of my decade paddling, and it's only gotten better, it's not fair for me to say that, because other people might not be coming from that same baseline, right? What I have found though, because at first I was getting much healthier and feeling much better, and then at a certain point I was overreaching for my abilities. I was comparing myself to others, and my training load was too high and my calorie intake was too low. My carbs, my protein, and my fats were off. The macronutrient ratios were off for my body type, and I wasn't eating enough. My hormones went absolutely wacky. I should have known when, like, I would get like the acne here. I thought, like, I was eating 2,000 calories a day. I thought that was sufficient. I eat usually 3,000 calories, if not more, a day now when I'm training. And my hormones went back to normal, like normal cycle, and I feel healthier, like by a lot. So calorie intake is definitely the number one thing that I've found that's helped me in my like 30s, whereas in my 20s it was just getting healthier for me. Like I said, that's not a good baseline to go off of. Eating that amount of food daily it's hard, and it's borderline disgusting sometimes. Like I look at my plate, or I look at what I have to eat, because I don't eat any processed foods, and it's like a lot of rice or a lot of vegetables and stuff like that. Just to get that many calories off of whole organic foods, it's a large quantity of food. Most meals I'm eating until I'm uncomfortably full. And that, in terms of recovery, I mean, it's improved my sleep. I already mentioned that it fixed my cycle, and it, recovery wise, it enables me to get back to the next workout. Whereas before, when I was trying to take training super seriously, I was training 2 times a day, but I had plateaued really badly because I was overtraining and I was under eating. I know my Garmin gives me a readout. It estimates how many calories I burn every day. Take that with a grain of salt as well, because it thinks it does it based on your height and your weight, right? And that's not accurate. And it does it based on like a BMI, and BMI is way off. If you are mainly muscle, so if you're more muscle than, some other person, it's going to give you that same calorie readout. But if you're muscular and you train a lot, even just sitting on your couch, you're burning more calories because your muscle requires more. So it is keenly possible that there could be a calorie deficit. It could be a macronutrient imbalance, too many fats. For women, I always believed carbs were the enemy. I upped my carb intake just to clean, healthy carbs, and that helped a lot. And it gets me back onto the water faster. So I feel less downtime and less breakdown of muscle. And mentally, I feel so much better mentally. Like I can't describe that one, but like my brain is on, and it wasn't before. It was very much off. So I hope that answers your question. That's a really hard one. Oh, somebody said I still eat all that stuff. Sorry, I'm not here to like poo-poo your diets. No, but yeah.
And do the girls have any questions?
Yeah, we promised an hour, so we're running over.
Well, thank you, April, so much for that. I personally learned a lot, and I also find you hilarious. So thank you for the hour. And yeah, we're really grateful that you spent this time with us and shared these really useful tips for us.
Awesome. No, I'm very honored that you asked me to be here, and I was super happy with the topic. So thank you. And the questions were very thought-provoking. Only thing I would add to my last answer for that question, there is a book. I've already read it in my 30s. It's called Fast After 50. It's just a really good read. I read it because I want to continue to be fast into my 40s and 50s. So the book Fast After 50, I think it's Matt Fitzgerald. I'm not sure, but it's a very, very good read for anybody as if you want to continue athleting as we all age. So it's going to happen. We're all doing it.
Until 80, right? I think that was our.
Okay, like I said, I'm going to get to 120.
Yeah.
I got goals. I write that one down. No.
And again, if everyone has, or anyone who has Instagram, April is on Instagram. April Zilg. That was it, right?
Yes, and I'm gonna share I'm just gonna throw in the chat. Oh, maybe I'm not. I had a link in case anybody wanted to sign up for my newsletter. But I can email. Well, actually, there it is. I shared it in the chat.
Perfect.
I did. Yay! Awesome. Well, sweet and excellent. I'm again so thrilled. Thank you guys so much. Over and out. Good night. Reach out to me. My newsletter. If you sign up on my newsletter, it just comes from my email. So if I ever write something and you have questions or want some feedback or need some advice or on paddling stuff, just hit reply to my newsletter and I'm pretty responsive. It takes me a couple days sometimes, but I'm there.
Sweet. Thank you so much. Thank you everyone for joining us today.
Thank you so much, everybody.